Momentum Fitness Podcast.
Okay, so I think you don't seem to go landscape, so I'm going to put you portrait. Is that right?
Yeah, see, I'm normal and you're portrait.
Yeah, you're the other way around. So how about that?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, it's fine. That'll be fine.
All right. Okay.
It's not perfect, but...
Well, I think we can both conclude that neither of us will ever be working as sound engineers or producers on podcasts after our luck with that tech.
How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Are we live? Does this count then?
Yeah, this is live. Yeah, you're.
All right, this is it. Awesome.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube, so I don't know how many people will be watching this. Obviously, probably one if we're lucky. Let's make a couple of disclaimers. Firstly, I might swear. You never know. We do have a slightly unstable connection. It may disappear, go up and down slightly. So, Luke, if you lose me a little bit, just bear with it. I am down the end of the garden in the shed. So, what else can we say? That's about it, really. My name's Neil Meekins. I'm presenting this Momentum podcast. This is all about fitness professionals, everything to do with the fitness world. So from lifting to nutrition to whatever, even how it affects trainers and coaches in this kind of world that we're living in at the moment, which is probably a big one that we might touch on. We don't want to get too political, but what comes up, you know, we just go with it. And we're never going to be right. We're going to be right sometimes, maybe a lot of times, but we're also going to be wrong. We don't know the answers to everything. Yeah, so I'm Neil Meekins. I have actually worked with Luke in the past, haven't I, Luke? We've worked in London together for a few years. But although we work together, you don't very often get a chance to sit and talk, do you?
No, we don't.
No. So even though we kind of, you know, it's very professional. We do our job. We talk about things like we might be talking about somebody's squat, for instance. So I was working more on the rehab side of things, and Luke heads up the personal training, body transformation work that he does with a team of people in London. He works at, we might as well mention the guy's name, down at Raw Fitness in London, which are a very prestigious personal training studio. You got
I should probably add at this point that obviously any opinions that I may express right now in no way are representative of my employer or Raw Fitness or anything like that. It is all my my own opinions solely. So no trying to sue companies, people.
No. So this is all about Luke, about what Luke does and about his experiences. So that's it in a nutshell. So yeah, Luke, so introduce yourself. What's your, I mean, I do hate putting titles on people because it somehow puts people into little boxes, and it's just not always the case. But you know, give us a rough guide. How long have you been in the training world? You know, what's your kind of specialities, mate?
Well, firstly, let's call me a personal trainer, just because I'd say that's what I am. I know loads of personal trainers are kind of giving themselves all different kinds of fancy titles to make themselves sound a bit more important than they are. But look, I train people, and I've been doing so for, I think this will be my 10th year. I think I started at the end of 2011.
Yep.
Because I work at Raw, and we are very specific in the product that we offer. I work pretty much solely within the 12-week body transformation model and beyond. So my clients, my overarching goal is obviously to get them as lean and as jacked in as short a time as possible. Which, you know, it's had its fair, that kind of model's had its fair share of kind of detractors. And it's very much on vogue to kind of be like anti-diet, anti-transformation, stuff like that. But, you know, I thoroughly believe in that model. And I'd like to think I'm pretty good at it as well.
It works. It works. It does work.
Look, it does. And I think, like, we'll just not jump too deep into this in a moment. It might come up later. And I think the very positive thing about it is that it actually offers a result within a certain time scale. You know, you actually get a product that you've paid for. Whereas I think a lot of what a negative side of a lot of personal training, it's kind of just a never-ending cycle of, you know, a lot of hard work and no results. Like having builders in your house doing a renovation that never ends.
Do you ever like sometimes I can understand someone pays for, you pay, see, this is where it gets funny, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about someone's health. So do you think that by them just paying for, say, a 12-week transformation and you deliver, you know, they've lost weight, they've toned up muscularly, do you find that people then go on to take that on as more of a lifestyle choice after doing the 12 weeks? Or do you think the majority of people go back to, you know, knocking back the booze, eating more bad foods, putting on weight again? What's your kind of take on it? What do people, like the general public, what do they do?
Look, I think if it's done properly, and I think if the trainer does a good job of conveying that, you know, there is life beyond that 12-week before and after photo, I don't see any reason why there should be that, what's the word? Why people should revert back to their old negative habits. Because, like, sure, you know, they will drink again, they will go out, I'm sure they'll have the dominoes again, whatever. But even if they keep 50% of the good habits that they've been practicing throughout a 12-week transformation, they're going to be a hell of a lot fitter and stronger and healthier, and all the other benefits that we get from training than they would be if they'd never started in the first place.
Yeah,
like, I'm always honest with clients. I'm always honest that 12-week photo at the end, when they're, you know, ripped out of their minds, they're like that for a bit. That's the tip of the mountain. And once you get to that tip of the mountain, there's always a journey back down afterwards. They're not going to stay like that forever. They're not going to be like that 12 months a year, because it's not healthy to be that lean all year round. It's not sustainable. I hate that word. I hate that word sustainable, but it's not sustainable unless you're actually making money out of it. But even if they get to that lean and then they slip back 20% from that point, that's still probably 80% further than they were when they embarked on it in the first place. And then they're not 12 weeks out from being in their best shape ever. They might be 3 weeks out from being their best shape ever. And that's kind of what I see as more the long-term benefit of it is, you know, you're not going to maintain that pace forever. You're not going to stay that lean forever. But one, it's great to know you can do it. And then you have a context of, okay, maybe I don't want to stay that lean. Maybe I don't want to be this strict with my life. If I just dial it back a little bit, maybe I'm a little bit softer, not quite as lean. You know, maybe I relax a little bit more on food and drink and things like that. But I'm still strong, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm relatively lean. And, you know, apply whatever kind of medical health markers to that, or mental health markers, or whatever you want. They're certainly a darn sight better than they were when they came in.
There's I don't know about you, but there are some people who can stay on let's call it a healthy lifestyle diet, like pretty much constantly, or they seem to be able to eat the right foods all the time and do, at least they say they do. I mean, in my experience, a lot of people don't always stick to as strict a routine as they say. I find personally, for me, what I've found with a lot of people and with myself is I can't maintain the same thing constantly. I don't think many humans can they? I mean, sometimes it's good to just eat too much for a few weeks or a month and then start on this diet again. Sometimes it's good to back off from training for a while, so you get a little bit not rusty, but you just can't keep going at it all the time. And do you think, like, us as like humans, we should have this real kind of give and take in our diet, like the seasons? Yeah, it's not always hot, it's not always cold, you know, it's somewhere in the middle, and we kind of change cyclically, if that's the right word, to our environment. So maybe from that sort of standpoint, that 12-week kind of body transformation would fit that really well, wouldn't it? That kind of model.
100%. I think that training, nutrition, body composition, whatever, we look at it over the space of a year, look at it over the space of 5 years, look at it over the space of 10 years. There's constant peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
And there's constant high points and low points. I like your analogy of like, you know, it moves like the seasons, I think spot on.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of it just depends on what other shit have you got going on at the same time. You're not always able to dedicate yourself to 4 times a week training, weighing out all your food. Like, I've got a new baby, and in all honesty, my training and nutrition has gone to shit because
Congratulations, by the way. How old is he?
She is 10 months now.
Jesus Christ.
And is waking up every half an hour at night. So you can understand that working out and counting fucking macros is not the top of my list right now.
It's one thing I say to a lot of the young PTs, like, I mean, let's face it, there aren't many older than me in the business, but every time when I speak to them, I see them having their lives running around doing what they want to do while they're single, and I say to them, just wait until you hit that period where you've got children, you've got a wife, you've got a mortgage, and do you know what? That must knock out a lot of pretty good personal trainers. Actually, it must just like finish them off, because it's not easy, is it?
It's certainly
kids.
It's getting up at 4 a.m. every morning, getting back at 10 p.m. every night, having prep to do for the next day after that, getting 4 hours in bed, stuff like that. It's burnout is super common within the personal training industry. And I think, I can't remember what the stat is, it might have changed, but I'm pretty sure the stats for personal trainer burnout was, I think, something like 1 in 3 qualify are out of the industry in 6 months.
In 6 months?
Yeah, I think that's the stat.
Didn't even last a year.
100% would believe that. I started my career in 2011 in a David Lloyd in Cardiff.
Right.
And that was used as a PT qualification venue by a company called the Training Room. Remember them?
Yeah, I do. Them? Yeah.
So I can't remember how long the qualification took. Maybe like 9 weeks, something like that. It gets shorter and shorter every year, doesn't it?
They still around?
Fuck knows. But they make the qualification shorter and shorter every year. They make it more expensive every year, and they guarantee that their marketing is that they'll guarantee that there's like 100% pass rate, and that's partly because it's a multiple choice questionnaire that a chimp could fill in and get 100%. But basically, you'd see these massive groups of excitable young kids all kind of basically doing their PT qualification.
Yeah.
And obviously, because I'd see them day in, day out, they're there 5 days a week, 9 weeks or whatever, and I'd always be on the floor, so I'd kind of start recognizing them and know who they were. And then obviously the qualification would end, and a new influx of kids comes in and stuff like that. There was, just outside Cardiff, there was a Starbucks on like the main road that I used to go to sometimes. And I don't know what it was about that Starbucks, but the amount of PTs or kids that I saw from that PT course, who then 6 months later, I'd see behind the counter in Starbucks, and it was specifically that Starbucks, and it was so many.
Man, I should be there now.
Group of say 20 kids, like year in, year out, there'd probably be like 5 from every group who ended up in Starbucks. Yeah. And it would always be, I'd talk to them, and it would always be that either they went into somewhere like a DW that charged them a fuckload of gym rent.
Yeah.
Didn't give them any kind of training or help or whatever. Literally just pushed them out on the floor. This is your rent. Go get some clients.
Yeah, man.
And most of them couldn't, because they had no idea what they're doing. And obviously every month, however much comes out, and they just start running out of money. There's nothing coming in because they haven't got enough clients to even break even on their gym rent, and 6 months they're out. And the others, say the ones who did do quite well, they just couldn't hack getting up at 4 for your early clients and then getting back at 10 for your late clients. You're
You're not
Not
selling
for
the
everyone.
business, Luke. You're not selling the business.
Yeah, but look, take any industry of people who've say done it at the highest level,
Not easy.
and they describe it to you. It's probably not going to sound fun.
Well, I always, I mean, I've seen a lot of new PTs over my career, and the one that you get very often is the person that says, well, you know, I worked in marketing, or I worked in an office somewhere, whatever. And, you know, I like working out. I've always enjoyed working out. And then they go and do a PT course and they get thrown into a gym, and then they realize that being in a gym every day, early in the morning till late at night, isn't quite as funky and cool as you think it is when you're just doing it as as a novice, or someone who thinks they know what they're doing. Like someone who's weight training. There are very few people, actually, I would say very few people, that actually take their hobby and it become a professional choice, because it spoils your hobby. But if you're really into it, like I know you are and I am and lots of other people are, then it's like you're living your dream. But like, I can literally stay in the gym all day, every day, under those lights, around those machines, not see any sunlight, just talking to people about health and fitness every day, non-stop. It's just what I do. But a lot of people can't. And that, again, whittles down a lot of people, doesn't it? Because they do their training and they can't hack it.
Well, also the sheer amount of energy you have to put out per client as a good personal trainer.
Yeah.
I'll make that distinction, because there's a lot of dead fish on gym floors who perform lifeless, inanimate sessions and are checking their phone between. But if you're doing PT properly, you are putting energy into people, and they're taking energy from you.
Yeah.
Every single hour. You know, you
Yeah.
do, 8 clients a day, 10 clients a day, however many people are doing.
Yeah.
It sucks you dry of energy after a while. So, you have to have a certain level of endurance and mental fortitude to be able to survive within the PT industry.
But why some of the most successful personal trainers, especially the kind of media-led ones that are up there, in the focus of, like, the big media companies, they're often, no disrespect to them, but they're often not very well qualified. And actually, you watch some of their stuff and it's like, it's really awful what they're doing and how they're teaching people. When you're a professional, you can look back on somebody else and go, my God, what are they doing? But yet these people are the very people that are really the forefront of our industry, in front of the public. But it's more about their personality, isn't it, than their technical ability. You can get by.
You can see what they've put the time into. They've put the time into marketing themselves, creating content, putting themselves out there. And, you could argue that for some of those people, they've kind of cracked the code on it. They found the glitch in the matrix, because, the money that I know some of them are making is far in excess of what your average personal trainer would be like. And obviously, content creation, filming yourself constantly and stuff like that is work in itself.
Yeah.
But they ain't getting up at 4 a.m. and commuting 2 hours into a gym and then doing the same on the way back. So, generally the most knowledgeable PTs, they've invested their time in theory, technique, education, stuff like that. They haven't necessarily invested their time in how to communicate it best to the most possible people. So, they're not necessarily the best people to give fitness advice for the masses, because then they're not going to package it in the most easily absorbable and digestible way.
Yeah.
Obviously people slag off. Body Coach is the best example, right? I know people give him a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But let's be real. The amount of people's lives he's probably affected.
Yeah.
For the better. Through his persona and communication, by getting them to buy his Lean in 15 cookbooks. Do you do Lean in 15? Something like that kind of thing. By getting him to buy his cookbooks, and do some fucking jumping jacks and burpees every morning, he's probably affected fucking, I don't know how many people I've trained over the years, you know, how many people I've affected positively over the years, but it is likely a tiny percentile of what he has. Regardless of how much more I know my shit than him. So, you know, I think there is a lot of positives to those people. And look, how much fucking theory do you have to know? To get someone to eat protein and green veg and do something that gets their heart rate up for 20 minutes a day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, the body coach, I mean, I could pick up on any number of his techniques and probably put him right on them, but I've got a lot of seniority and experience. But what he does as a human being and what he's doing for other human beings is exemplary. So somebody's got to do it, right? Somebody's got to do it. And you're never gonna look, we're run by a political system full of absolute retards, in my opinion. So if we've got someone like him, he's actually a bigger positive role model than a lot of people out there. But somebody's got to do that high level PT job. It's just going into that and going into the fact that people seem to pick people to train with who they like, rather than on their knowledge, which is just the way it is. I mean, somebody will choose somebody who's got abs over somebody who's not looking so great, even though they may have 10 times the experience. It's just the way things are. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people do choose that. I mean, if you go onto Instagram, for instance, and you know, this gets me sometimes when you see somebody who's got no experience, they look great and they've got 30,000 followers. And you know, I know some of the coaches in London who have got 1,000 followers, and yet they are absolutely fantastic, because sometimes the best people, they don't have time to write the books, to do the social media, to keep on banging it. And actually, they're the best people. It's the same with the strength coaches and the athletics coaches and like the real high level people. Sometimes they ain't got time to write all this stuff down. They just ain't got the time because they're so busy, because they're so good. Anyway.
But then are they necessarily serving themselves in the best way?
Just doing a job.
By tying themselves to an hourly rate. And even though they're obviously giving their all to their clients, but it's arguably why a lot of PTs burn out, is that they get stuck in that treadmill of 50 client sessions a week, and you know, and giving everything they possibly can, all their available possible time to the client.
That's a good point.
But without actually making any reservation for themselves.
That's a really good point.
And they end up tired, burnt out, no social life, no relationships, no families.
You know, no that
time for anything else.
But you know that because you've been there. Same as me.
But the thing is, look, also, but like I said, it's also personality type. So I don't actually begrudge doing that. Partly because look, I didn't really start working until I was 30. Yeah,
you was a rock star, weren't you?
Yeah. I toured in a metal band. But you know, I basically had 10 years of drinking and partying and fucking around before I ever actually applied myself to a career. So the way I look at it is, you know, I owe a few hours back, like compared to all the people who have been doing it since, you know, they were 21, they first set foot in a gym. So personally, I don't begrudge putting hours like that in. It's always kind of been like a bit of a, you know, badge of honor if you
I think there's some
work and put more hours in than everyone else. But you know, once things like families start coming in, then you do have to start working a bit smarter, because otherwise you spread yourself too thin.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at what some of your guys do when they're doing 30 odd clients a week, and I think back to when I used to be able to do that, like it does just it kill. You've only got a few years really as a personal trainer where you can knock out that number of people. You've got to be thinking about the future, what you're going to specialize. This is what you're saying, really, isn't it? What you're going to specialize in, how you're going to educate yourself.
And like, you know, like you said, the most knowledgeable guys who put all their efforts into just their clients. You know, it's awesome. The clients are definitely getting the best version of them. But that's the question: is that person serving their long-term career the best?
Yeah.
by doing that day in and day out?
Yeah.
Or could they actually be more successful and influence more people on a wider scale and have a bit more time for themselves by doing something more like the body coach does? It's a tough question, because obviously you do need, there's room in the industry for everyone. Some people do seem to have, cracked that code. And I can't remember what I heard the body coach was making. I think like 5 years ago, I heard he was making something like 4 million per month, turning over 4 million per month. So
nearly as much as me then.
So arguably, he's doing it right. But
yeah. I mean, do you do any, where you guys are, do you do any education for the new guys? Do you?
Yeah. So I've been kind of running that so far.
Cool.
And obviously this year's been very, very disrupted.
Yeah.
But the main thing I'm trying to do is get them all up to a certain standard, where my goal for all the kind of new trainers, all the most experienced trainers as well, is basically just give them sufficient tools to be confident and make educated choices when it goes into the long-term programming for their clients. To basically just understand one, all the necessary variables and things like that of training, but also to be able to be objective and to be able to stand back and actually look at the client and be able to ascertain, what their needs are. Yeah. I'd say that's where a lot of people can fall flat sometimes, because yes, especially in 12-week plans, we're always chasing body composition, but then past a certain point, if someone's been with you for 6 months, in order to serve them best, that it might not just be a conversation of like, we need to get leaner. That's when you may have to look at certain, improving certain movement patterns, some kind of rehab work, putting more muscle on them, giving them more food, things like that. It's not just a case of calorie deficit and volume every day of the year.
Yeah. What about, obviously at the moment we're in very, very, very strange times for the health and fitness industry, in particular, well, for all of us. But, you got to feel for these young PTs, or any PTs really, that have come into the business relatively new. And they've probably lost all their work, or quite a lot of it. And they're trying to transition into finding ways. Some of them are probably, having to go and work in coffee shops or delivering. I know a lot of people that did delivering over Christmas and stuff. But what's the way forward? Because this isn't looking like it's going to end anytime soon. It looks like we're going to be in this lockdown tier 5 until kind of March, and that I've heard. But even if we come out of it, it's going to be a slow progression. I mean, what's the future? What do you think, like, young personal trainers and that can do at the moment to try and weather the storm, so to speak, Luke? Because it's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's a tough one, and but if you look at it, some people have thrived from this. Some people have so like some people, or boot camps or parks or whatever. Some people have really pivoted what they do to make the most of the situation and been very, very successful in it. Honestly, I can't think of anyone's name in particular, but I mean, someone somewhere. Some people have changed their model and have been very successful at it and actually thrived off lockdown.
But that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's all about adaptation and surviving. Yeah,
exactly. I think what it has proved is, I think, that having just your one way of doing things and stubbornly sticking to it, despite all the warning signs of lockdowns and whatever, is a dangerous game. It is putting all your eggs in one basket. I think that's potentially where for a lot of PTs, new PTs getting into it, I think part of the lesson is that you want to have multiple revenue streams. It's dangerous unless you have the benefit of furlough. It's dangerous to have all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Because the situation changes and all of a sudden you've got nothing.
Mm.
Whereas for a lot of younger trainers, look, if you do some online, you do some in-gym work, you sell some ebooks or whatever, there's potentially, even if one side of that dries up, hopefully there's still a bit coming in from the other streams.
Yeah.
So, and also you've got to be adaptable. I think that's where a lot of the bodybuilding types and the powerlifting types, a lot of the specialists have struggled.
Yeah.
Because anything other than a fully equipped gym's bullshit.
Yeah.
But we don't have fully equipped gyms right now.
I mean,
so look, I fucking hate resistance bands, but
do you?
Knees, I hate resistance bands. Then just
I love them. I love a resistance band. There's another one.
What else? What you use that for in the
rehab, mate?
I don't like how they feel. I don't like how you have to modify exercises. I just don't like them. But how many other bits of equipment can you use in a living room without smashing the place? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've got kettlebells and things like that. I can't swing my kettlebell indoors because I'm going to kill my cat. The amount of times my cat's tried to throw herself in the way of a kettlebell swing. Yeah,
not good.
So it's not viable. So as much as I don't like them, they are a tool that it is necessary for me to adapt to using.
But do you like the band like from its false perspective, from its?
I don't like the way that it deloads in lengthened positions of movements.
So
such a discrepancy between like the strength curve in the shortened position and then you get nothing at the other end. I don't like how it feels, but look, arguably there's some benefits to training with a completely different resistance profile like that.
Yeah, I get. So for people that don't understand this, well, basically, if you've got a band in an elongated position, then depending on where it is, but when you're in full eccentric position, there's no load on the band. There's nothing, and then you get the full concentric contraction gives you the full loading of the band. So basically the principle is that as you pull the band, it starts getting heavier and heavier and heavier, so that when you're in your contracted position, when you're at your strongest position, the resistance is the heaviest. The problem is with that, as you said, you're not getting the kind of weight that you need in the full lengthened position. And there's a big argument about saying you should be as strong in the lengthened, or you should be strong in the lengthened and in between as well as at the end, if that makes sense to people. I don't know. But I like the bands from the rehab perspective because it does deload really nicely and it brings people on. I like it as a secondary kind of exercise. I like them in stretching and distraction of things like shoulders and hips and stuff. But you love your weights, don't you, Luke?
Look, I love physical practice, and to be honest, and like I find myself as the years go past, I get less and less enthusiastic about barbells. Yeah. As the years go on. Even things like dumbbells, I can live without dumbbells. Yeah. I enjoy them, but I love, like the first lockdown made me kind of rediscover how much I love things like kettlebell training, kettlebell complexes. It's kind of like finding my way around heavy club bells. I love TRX. I like suspension training. I love suspension training. Yep. And I actually really enjoyed having to kind of adapt and use body weight and things like that, rather than just being stuck under machines and benches and all of that stuff. I found it. I really enjoyed it, especially because like my original kind of forays into training, I never really set foot in a gym until I was 30. It was all kicking people in the face. It was like kickboxing, Muay Thai, some MMA, things like that. Where if you did any kind of strength work, it was mostly body weight circuit stuff, some med balls, some bands, things like that. If it was throwing some heavy stuff around, and which look, I enjoy that. I enjoy that whole kind of like, simplified caveman training kind of stuff. It's very much me, rather than getting too deep into bodybuilding and things like that.
Have you done the, I mean, I did when I first started out, Arnold Schwarzenegger and, all the guys, I knew them off by heart and backwards. And Dorian Yates was the man at the time when I was doing bodybuilding training. I did that for like probably 10 years, just like standard bodybuilding, but we didn't know any different. I mean, back when I was training, there was no such thing as a personal trainer. They didn't exist. So you only had your, the guys in the gym who were doing bodybuilding. That's how you knew how to lift weights. There was only one other person actually that ever showed me about Olympic lifting, and he was our rugby coach back in the 80s. So I learned a little bit of Olympic lifting back then, but I preferred the bodybuilding style stuff because I suppose when you're younger, you're all about looking better and feeling your muscles get pumped up, and you're more about that visual side than you are about.
Lifting's a deep, dark rabbit hole of micromanagement, and it's not for everyone. No,
and it's a weird one. But over the years, the bodybuilding, like now, I think it distorts people a little bit too much. I don't want to say anything wrong against the bodybuilders, because what they do I think is amazing in some circumstances, but I think it distorts a lot of young men's and women's bodies, and once you get that kind of distortion, it's really hard to get your body back into a kind of natural equilibrium. So like a lot of people will pump up their chest and the front of their shoulders. I mean, I did it. I've got a huge bloody chest and my back suffered because of it, because I didn't build it up in the same way. But that was back then. People are a little bit more intelligent now. But I tell you, if you go down a local gym, you go down a local, typical gym down the road, I don't want to say any names, but people were doing the same thing that we were doing in the 80s, and they're training like they're still Arnold Schwarzenegger, or they're even buying his kind of books and trying to do his routines and things. And you think, like, you're literally on a different planet, and then they're still back on that old one. It's like really weird.
You ever tried to do any of Arnie's routines? About 2 hours long. Each workout. It's
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, it works. But I think for most people, the fact that you haven't got whatever he was taking at the time coursing through your veins throughout makes hard 2 hour workouts pretty improbable for most people.
And the recovery as well. I mean, the recovery that you need from that kind of thing, again, if you're not taking some kind of performance enhancement, you're never going to be able to recover in time to train again, or you're just going to burn out and crash. That's another point actually. It's about the steroids use in the gyms. Like, I've been around this all my life, so I know how much of it goes on, and it's like every other person in a local gym is doing this stuff, and it's like, well, maybe not
even the guys who look shit and you'd never believe that they were on anything, even they're taking something. It's crazy, like how prolific it is now. I've heard from a lot of people who I never would have guessed they were gear. They started taking gear before they even had put like a year into training.
I mean, it's not for me to tell anybody what to do. I like the actual performance of a human body against yourself and being able to do that but there's so many, you can see why people want to get into it. I've known a few guys in the past that were training for like 10, 15 years pretty hard, and they were real natural bodybuilders, and then eventually they succumbed to doing stuff. And like, then your body can synthesize and really use this stuff if you're at that athlete sort of standard. But for
then there's a point to it as well, isn't it? Everybody has a certain genetic limit that it can get to. if you've been training 10 to 15 years and you have taken, and you want to be a professional bodybuilder and you've taken your body as far as it can go, then there's no other way of doing it.
No.
And the thing is, and if you don't do it, everyone else is. So it's pretty pointless even trying unless you're going to go for it. And look, I've got no problems with that, because modern bodybuilding wouldn't exist without it.
No.
And also you then apply it to sports. The moment they started drug testing in the UFC, I started losing interest, to be honest, because it's not as good as it used to be, because all these absolutely jacked monsters who were murdering people all of a sudden became like diminished shadows of their former selves within 12 months. And I've got to admit, it's not as exciting anymore, because people kind of look a lot more human than they used to do. And I do kind of sometimes look back on the days of, like, the UFC, in particular Pride, when there was monumental drug use, and think like that was actually a way better sport back then, and I kind of wish I could see that now. So within the context of that, like, look, do what you want, because if everyone's taking it, then it levels the playing field.
Yeah, because like you're right, because people want to see that. People want to see athletes run super, super fast. They don't care if they're taking drugs, but if someone gets caught, taking it, then they're like, oh, that's out of order. They shouldn't have been doing it. But actually, the public, they're wanting to see. I mean, look at the WWE and things like that. I mean, they want that. It's all part of the act, and it's all part of the system. We crave it. But if someone gets caught,
it's a sport. Sport is spectacle at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
And look, if no one ever ran faster in the Olympics or jumped higher, in the next 100 years than they are now, then why the fuck are we watching it?
Man, we should just let everybody take whatever they want, and it would be crazy. I wonder.
Well, look, a lot like the whole hanging Lance Armstrong out to dry.
Yeah.
When he still beat every other athlete in those races who were also on the same amount of drugs.
Do you remember when Ben Johnson, he won? I think it was
Carl Lewis. Carl Lewis was just as juiced up.
Yeah, but there was this program. I can't remember what it was, but there was a scientific program, and they kept all the samples of every single athlete in that 100-meter final. Okay, 20 years later, they test all of those samples. They retest them again, right? And they're picking up things which they couldn't pick up back in the day from every single person that was in that final. So it was all an exercise in PR or something, But
I think it was something to do with like Olympic Committee politics.
Yeah.
I think there you are. Cool, you dropped out for a moment there. I think they were trying to make an example of someone, and I think for whatever reason, some kind of like political issue, they picked him. Yeah. But look, it's in terms of people using it recreationally. If your work depends on it, if your career depends on it, then it has its place. For your average gym goer who's just trying to like cut some corners in the gym, it's the potential health hazards of that, especially people who don't know how to take it. Like the guys who know how to take it, it's a convoluted issue, because half the things you're taking are just to offset the side effects of something else. It's not just a case of getting some testing, getting some growth hormone and jabbing it.
No, it gets a ripple effect, doesn't it? You start having to take this, to take that, to take this, to take that, and then before long you're so far involved in not just your training but in the supplementation of your training that your training becomes secondary to everything else you're thinking about. I mean, I know guys who've got, or had in the past, I don't so much now, and they've got a training diary, and then they've got what they're taking diary, and it's like more in that than it is about the training, because the training is pretty simple, really, relatively.
Well, those are the ones who are probably doing it properly then.
Yeah, they were.
They always say that Dorian Yates had one workout that he did for 20 years.
Yeah, his blood and guts workout. Yeah. Like I can remember, again, back in the day, trying to copy or emulate what Dorian Yates. I mean, I would go and follow him to different bodybuilding competitions in the UK and meet him and shake his hand and stuff like that. I think it was NABBA at the time, something like that. And I was just in awe of what this bloke was, what he could do. And, you know, because it had always been about the Americans, Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that. Really, for us at our generation, it was all about the Americans until he came along and just blasted the scene. It just knocked
He was
it
the first of the mass monsters, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. And I think wasn't a lot of his stuff by Mike Mentzer's stuff.
I'll say that you cut out there. Sorry, mate.
I said a lot of his training was based on Mike Mentzer's.
Yeah, his was so Mike Mentzer he did the original high intensity training, didn't he?
Yeah.
Always get the lineage wrong here. And then Dorian Yates's version, that was heavy duty, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Dorian heavy duty training. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tried
1 to 2 sets done to failure. And
yeah.
beyond.
Man, I tried to do that for a couple of years, and I used to train with a guy who used to be on steroids. He was taking steroids, and we were both the same size, both the same strength, everything, right? And there's just no way I could compete with him anymore. It was impossible. He left me, left me for dead. Absolutely left me for dead. And he just kept on and kept on and kept on. And you know, nice guy, but again, when we go back to the, you couldn't repair. I could lift the weight, but I don't know why I could do it again 2 days later. It's like, forget it. And
how many people can train that hard? How many people can train so hard that 1 to 2 sets per exercise done to beyond failure is sufficient volume for them? Most people can't push themselves to that level of intensity. So for most people, it ends up just being a shitload volume program that doesn't do much.
But actually, a lot of people train too hard anyway, Luke, don't they? I mean,
I don't know if I'd agree with that.
No? Yeah, so what? Yeah, go on.
I think some people train too often.
Okay.
And under recover from other stresses in their life. So let's say you're working 12 hours a day, you're sleeping 4 hours a night, there's all this other shit going on, and then you've got some ridiculously high volume training plan in there as well. Then arguably overall stress on your life could be excessive, and you're under recovering between your trainings, between training sessions, just because of other shit going on, lack of sleep, things like that.
That's a biggie.
Really, I can't think of in the last few years, I can't think of anyone that I've seen that I would say is training too hard, with the exception of the HIIT class girls. Some of the girls who are going to like 2 HIIT classes a day, doing like Barry's boot camp, you know, like twice a day, and spin classes and extra burpees on top of that, all the while eating like 900 calories a day. I think there's an argument for that, but within like the gym context, I can't think of any. I honestly can't think of anyone that I've seen within a gym who I'm like, oh man, that guy's training too hard.
Well, just jumping on what you said about the boot camp. So, from my perspective, as from the rehabilitation side, just wanted to put a quick thing in there that the majority of people I see that cause themselves injuries following training programs are either one of the 3 following things, right? 1, boot camps. I used to get a lot of clients coming from boot camps, injuries. Okay. 2 will be CrossFit. And I'm not going to go on about CrossFit because I happen to quite like CrossFit. Yeah. So it's nothing wrong with the CrossFit. It's
CrossFit now is not what CrossFit was in 2012.
No, it's not. I like CrossFit. I think it's got a lot of good points. It's got a few bad ones as well, but it's got a lot of good points. It's just the way it's delivered. Again, the type of, and then the third one is people running and just doing it themselves and just starting off running, and they don't even know how their body moves, and that's something. Oh God, I could keep talking forever here, couldn't I, Luke? I get terrible.
That's all right. No, this is a good topic. Keep going.
Yeah. So from what Luke's saying is people don't train too hard. People don't run too hard. People don't do CrossFit too hard. They can.
I would take that back on CrossFit. Some people do CrossFit too hard
too
because
much.
because the competitive
Competition.
aspect. The competitive aspect is a different conversation.
So what we see in all of those three modalities that I was just talking about is I usually find that people it's technique wise mostly becomes the factor, as well as the ego in the competition, because you push yourself, like you said, in the competition, and that's usually a fudge factor. That's where you can get hurt. So you train really hard and then you keep doing competitions and you get injured. But people don't know how their own bodies move unless you have someone look at you and say, well, do you realize you're doing this when you run? Or do you realize when you're deadlifting, you're doing this? Or, and this is where the expertise of a good personal trainer or a CrossFit coach or a running coach or whatever it is you want to do, you should really get someone just to have a look at you, because you can put all the will in the world you want into running and doing CrossFit and lifting weights. But if you've got a discrepancy in the way you do things, the way your body moves, for instance, the chances are you're going to get injured somewhere down the line. People that, have too much of a pelvic tilt, people whose feet turn in too much, or their knees, or little things like that. However, it's not always the case. But we're not taught at a younger age how to look at these things in ourselves, are we, Luke? We go, the first thing we do is we go and do PE at school. That's just about taking part, isn't it? We're not taught how to look at ourselves. Not really.
Well, I think especially now, because there's so little physical practice in people's lives now. Like, do they even still have PE in school? I honestly don't know, because I know there's so many issues about, obviously people shouldn't be forced to do something that they're bad at because it'll make them ashamed, and there's all these kind of political factors which now influence things like PE now. So I honestly don't know what the state of PE is now, but there's so little physical practice in people's lives that I think the main thing that people lack is any kind of awareness of their body.
Yeah.
Any kind of body awareness. They have no idea what their physical self is doing.
No.
Which is how a lot of people find themselves, let's say, with the levels of body fat that people have when they come to, say, like our gym for a body transformation. A lot of people don't see it coming. A lot of people, they don't spot what's happening to their body until it's 10 years too late.
Yeah.
You see, like they're so detached from what their physical self is doing that they only kind of notice where they actually are once they've got there. They don't see the warning signs along the way. I think that counts for body composition, and it also counts for, as you're talking about, poor movement patterns, bad technique, things like that. Like, people just not aware that it's happening. They're not really aware that there's a difference between doing something with a good movement pattern and doing something with a bad movement pattern.
Yeah. I mean, quite often people will they'll start on the road to their new fitness regime. They'll start running, and then 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks down the line, that's when, the Achilles tendon injuries come in. That's when the shin splints are starting to get really bad. That's when the knee, the hip problems, the back problems. And it's the same with the lifting. I mean, oh God, the amount of times I've seen people with bad shoulders because they're, trying to do snatches and overhead presses, and they're doing too many each week. Actually, do you think that saying less is more is a good thing in some cases?
I think I'd say you listed like three kind of training modalities that you see the most injuries from.
I think so.
Or the most dysfunction from. I'd say what those three modalities all have in common.
Oh, there's one more. There's one more. It's a biggie.
Yeah.
It's people that do nothing and have never done anything.
Yeah, cool. So I can twist this to what I was going to say anyway. I think what all of those have in common, that it's generally a low intensity of work done too often with bad technique, as opposed to, let's say, powerlifting injuries and strongman injuries.
Yeah.
Is that, look, if you get it wrong once, you're
done.
fucked.
Yeah.
Like you've got a 200k Atlas stone on your chest.
Oh God.
1 millimeter off, and it's game over.
Oh, I love strong.
Whereas
stuff.
what each of those modalities that you've mentioned have in common is that you can get away with doing stuff badly.
Yeah.
Because that's why I'd say people don't overtrain in general, because none of those people who get injured running are doing fucking ultra marathons.
No.
None of them are running like 200 kilometers across like the Rockies or something. They're probably doing a bunch of 5Ks.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're probably doing it slowly and badly means they can do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. So it's repeated bad technique done to a low intensity is how I would phrase it. Same with like CrossFit. Anyone who's good at CrossFit, who's like snatching 120 kilos or whatever,
God, them guys are crazy.
Isn't doing that every day.
Who was the guy?
You can't physically do that every day. It's the people who are deadlifting 40k badly.
Yeah.
Because lightweight allows you to move it badly.
Yeah.
With no immediate consequence, as opposed to 200k. Like if you can lift it, you do it badly. Again, you break on the spot. So I'd say it's the low loads that allow you to go back the next day and do it equally as shittly that cause the problems, because there's no immediate consequence, as there is when someone is training at high intensity and they get flattened if they get it wrong.
Have you seen a lot of people with injuries and problems like shoulder problems, back problems, knee problems, and they come in to see you, and they're not that bad that they can't train, and they make you aware. I've had this problem and I've had that problem, and like you do, you say, okay, well, it's all right, we can work around that. Let me know if it's too much of a load. And have you found a lot of people improve, or their problem just like goes away just through actually strengthening their body and following a better diet?
Yeah, look, most of what I'd say in untrained people. So in untrained people, and this actually goes back to what you said about that fourth thing, is people do nothing.
Yeah.
The same argument. People do too much of nothing because there's no consequence to it. Yeah. Immediately, you don't get flattened by sitting on this couch for a night. I think untrained people, most of the issues that I'll generally see, whether it be knees, shoulders, backs, necks, things like that, generally seem to come from a lack of strength and a lack of awareness.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, my knees hurt when I lunge, so they think they've got a knee problem. Yeah. It's just they're too fucking weak to lunge.
Yeah.
They're not able to do. I know, look, there's a lot going on in a lunge. There's a lot of requirements to a good lunge, and it's probably one of the things that I see in a gym the most that's done really badly.
Yeah.
Because people like a lunge is taken, say if you go to a HIIT class, it's just accepted that you can lunge. Whereas, there's increments to everything. And I always kind of feel that regressions, that people should always start on the lowest regression, and you have to earn your way up to being able to do deadlifts, snatches, barbell squats, like dumbbell lunges, things like that. You need to be able to clear level 1 before you can do level 5. And so usually when you just take people back to a regression, you make them stronger within that regression and aware of what's happening. Then 6 weeks down the line, you try a lunge, and lo and behold, there's no knee pain, because their body's actually strong enough to stabilize the joint within the movement and manage the force that's going through their body, and they actually understand kind of what it is they're meant to be doing. And if you try it and it still looks like shit, then you just go back to the regression before that, work on that a little longer.
I mean, I'd say one of the best times in my life when I was at my, what I would say, all-round peak, was when I was doing martial arts. Because when I first walked into when I was doing I'd done karate and judo, so I'd done lots of different things, and then I took up Aikido pretty seriously. And
was it after watching Above the Law by any chance?
No.
Was it Seagal?
No, it's nothing to do with that. Actually, it was really weird. It was nothing to do with that. I didn't even know Steven Seagal was a practitioner of it. There was a local boxing gym, and I used to go do a bit of the boxing, and it was a 5-star near where I live in Romford, and they were doing this like. I'd always loved martial. I'd always liked karate. I'd done a lot of karate, Kyokushinkai, and judo, and a bit of jiu-jitsu, old style jiu-jitsu, not Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, Japanese jiu-jitsu. And in fact, my good friend who was my sensei, he's like 6th Dan now. He's like top in the UK. But where was I? Yeah, so I used to go into this gym, and I'd watch these guys in like Japanese trousers with swords and rolling around on the mat, and I'd think to myself, well, that's different. That's like really like unusual. And then one night, the guys that were doing the Aikido, they used to come and they used to have the boxing ring. And what they used to do is they used to get into their shorts, right? Just a pair of shorts, so no gi or anything. And they used to fight in the boxing ring. Just used to wear a hand guard, but not pads. So this was before anything like UFC or Pride or anything like that. There was nothing like that at the time. And I think what was happening was K1 was coming out. Do you remember the karate?
Yeah,
full contact.
That's how I got. That was my first experience of watching martial arts. I started martial arts from watching K1 probably in 2002, 3, something like that.
Right. So what they used to do sometimes was have little fights between each other against boxers. Nothing too crazy, but every now and again someone would go a bit silly, and then from that you start to transition into, right, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to see what it's like. And like freaking hell, the first time I got on the mat, this guy he twisted me around in so many positions. I just felt like an absolute idiot. My body couldn't move. I'd done years of rugby and playing American football. I could not move. And he would just bend my arm and I was just gone, like crying like a baby, you know? And then from that point on, I said, I've got to loosen my body up and get stronger to be able to take this stuff. And then it just became a thing that I went and done. And without thinking about mobility, stability, strength, conditioning, all that, I just did it. You know, like now you've got all these guys like Edu Portal and all these different MoveNat, all these different movement practitioners, and all they're doing, as you know, because you do BJJ, didn't you? That all they're doing is putting together movements that you do on the mat anyway, and that people have done for years and years and years. They're just selling it as a more of a commercial system. Good on them. I mean, it gets out to other people. That's fine. I like all that stuff, by the way. But that's what everybody did. Everybody just kind of learned it like that. But you went and I don't know where I was going with that, Luke, because this is what happens. I start bloody talking, and I don't know what my point is. No, my point was that just turning up and doing it week in, week out changed my body without thinking about diet, body composition, anything like that. And it's something I took on when I went to work with athletes and stuff on the rehab side, that form follows function. It doesn't matter what you look like in the mirror when you start. Don't fit, like I try to say to people, forget about that, right? If you can do 10 chin-ups, lift your body weight off the floor 10 times, or do a bench press 10 times, or do 30 push-ups, you're going to have to look different to be able to do that. Your body composition's got to be better. You can't be
that's the point I was going to make. That's the thing, to perform. The thing is, what most people say who are getting into training, the issue they face, say if you're like, well, look, if you can do 10 chin-ups, 20 dips, 30 press-ups, for example, and you'll look great, which I totally believe as well. I think like the biggest, if I could keep any form of training, it'd be chin-ups and dips.
Oh yeah, Christ,
pretty much. Some kind of single leg squat.
Single leg squat, yeah.
But most people's problem, say what stands between them and being able to fulfill those standards, is that they're too fat. Based,
Yeah.
no, but look,
Yeah, I agree.
If performance is based around your relative strength to body weight ratio, which chins, dips, press ups fundamentally are, then for a lot of people they're simply too heavy. And so then I think that's the issue. If people are like, right, I'm not going to think about body composition or nutrition or anything like that, I'm just going to focus on performance.
Yeah.
If you're 140 kilos, like of, poor body composition, being able to do one press up is a long way off, let alone a chin up. So it's like chicken and egg situation almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
What they have to have in place before they can even think about, body weight performance standards, is they need to be less fat and need to carry less weight in order for a chin up to even become a conversation. So their point of focus needs to be different. What I love, do you ever read Dan John?
I've probably got all of Dan John's books. Yeah, I watch his podcasts, everything. Yeah, he's a legend.
I think it's been years since I've read this, but one of my favorite assessment tools, I think, was from Intervention.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of like a quadrant kind of thing.
Yeah, he does.
So
that.
it was basically like how to assess what you need to work on.
Yeah.
So, and if it was like, it went along the lines of something like, if you're more than whatever level of body composition or BMI, let's say you're 40% BMI, or anyone who's over 25% BMI, then your focus needs to be on body composition.
Yeah, I agree.
If your strength is under, let's say, the performance markers you gave of, let's say, X amount of chin-ups, X amount of press-ups, then your issue is you're not strong enough and you need to work on strength.
Yeah.
If you can't reach down and touch your toes, then what you need to be working on as a priority is mobility. And so it was kind of like it was an assessment tool of what your priority in training should be. I tried to do a similar talk for the trainers in one of the education seminars I was doing. Was kind of like a table to list to assess what the needs of the client were between moving on to the next phase, rather than just doing something like that. He did Venn
that
diagrams.
Yeah, he did that, and then what you would have was like 1 would be body composition, 2 would be strength, 3 would be mobility, and all the others are the ones in between. So you can find out. He did. I don't know if that's exactly right. So if somebody's looking and I haven't got it like 100%. Okay.
Gets the point across.
Yeah. So it is a good tool, Luke. Yeah, it's a good tool.
But yes, if someone's got a reasonable body composition, that's the other thing you get is get skinny guys who've maybe got a little bit of a belly on them, but are overall skinny guys.
Skinny fat.
Don't need to necessarily be worrying about dieting.
No.
They generally just need to get fucking stronger.
Yeah.
Because that level of body fat that they have, if you add 10k muscle on top of that, all of a sudden it becomes a relatively reasonable level of body composition, because now it's outweighed by lean mass as well. But what you find with most of those guys is they also struggle with press ups and chin ups.
Yeah, massively.
So the last thing they need to do is dieting and starving their body of resources that could potentially build muscle anymore.
What's your kind of view on diet? Let's have a little chat about diet. I've got some ideas, but I probably go along pretty much similar to you. I do think, me personally, I do think it very much depends on the individual and where they are and how their body is responding at the moment. But I'm doing it from a rehab perspective. But as far as training, losing fat, and giving your body the best nutrition it can to build muscle and look different in 12 weeks, what's your kind of your personal, not your necessarily what you're doing as a in the profession, maybe it is the same, I don't know, but what's your personal belief?
Obviously it all depends what the starting point of someone is, what the goal they're trying to reach is, and things like that. But if we're talking about just nutritional concepts that would support healthy living and training,
Yeah,
Is that
no,
kind of what we're looking at?
no, I'm thinking more along the lines of someone who's a little bit overweight, say a stone or two, and they want to shed the fat, but they want to look fuller. They want to be, more muscle. So it might be that over the course of like 12 weeks or something like that, that they don't lose a massive amount of weight because they're going to put on a bit of muscular weight, if it's possible to put on a lot of muscular weight in that time. But yeah, it's difficult, I know. But basically, yeah, the average person, I think, or like the average guy, actually, a lot of the average guys, they want to come and actually get bigger, don't they? So it's a difficult one. Let's take it for
Yeah,
the
but look, most untrained people will put on muscle
fat.
in a
Yeah,
calorie in a calorie deficit because
yeah.
just they haven't done any training before. So there's such a ceiling of adaptation to hit before you need to be worried about bulking.
Let's
Well,
let's
look,
say
I
say
think the
hold
best way
on.
to look at it,
Let's
what I'd
let
say
if no, I was
is,
going to say if you take your average, say a girl,
yeah,
lady, she works 5 days a week, or she's a stay-at-home mum. She's put on a couple of stone, and she wants to get the booty. She wants to trim up. She wants to look good, on the beach in the summer. What's going to be. I know you can't be specific for everybody because we will be here for an eternity describing everybody's
all right. So
individual. So roughly,
let's put it this way. So when you look at your average person who walks into it and gets a personal trainer and wants to improve their nutrition, improve their body composition, stuff like that, I'd say the way of answering this is what are they generally doing wrong in the first place? I'd answer it that way, and then by that then should solve our problem. I'd say one of the main issues with everyone, I'd say that they are undernourished through a lack of nutrient dense whole foods. So not even talking about calories.
they're just eating crap.
Yeah, they're eating crap.
Yeah.
So generally, when you look at people's food diaries, there's very little food on it. That's usually my main issue. There's generally very little food on people's
what do you mean
food diaries, like real food.
Oh, okay.
So there's a bunch of snacks.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of shit, but generally, it's not like they're having 5 enormous meals a day.
Mm.
There's maybe like one decent meal a day.
Mm.
Lunch is a fucking Tesco meal deal, and the sandwich is a pack of crisps.
Yeah.
Breakfast doesn't happen. And look, if I don't think there's any magic in fucking breakfast. But they'll generally be, if you look at their food diary and the actual meals they're eating, you're like, fuck, how are you like 20 kilos overweight when you don't eat anything? But then you add booze onto it, and then you add biscuits onto it, and then you add the things they haven't written in because they literally just reach and put it in their mouth, and it's such an insignificant thing that they don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And that's when generally the caloric excess will come in, is from processed snack foods and booze. Like no one's eating giant meals and putting themselves in a caloric excess through that way.
So it probably seems
so basically you see a lack of real nutrition.
So it probably seems
obviously going to throw out micronutrients and things like that. You'll generally see a lack of protein intake, and that's mostly it. I'd say it's a lack of real food more than anything, because once people fix that and they start actually, the first thing that happens when generally people are put on diets in my place of work, is they say it's too much food and they can't eat it.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Yeah. Because even though like calorically it's obviously far less than they've been on, because they, most people get significantly leaner very quickly off it. But the first objection you always get is like, I can't possibly eat this amount of food.
Do you still
because they don't eat real food and their bodies lack the ability to process real food and digest it.
Do you still go with a lot of supplements or none? Do you recommend them?
Look, I think they have their place. I think within the context of a 12-week training plan that involves hard training, therefore like mineral depletion from that, combined with a caloric deficit, when if you're in a deficit of calories, then obviously there's more likely to be a deficit of vitamin, mineral, micronutrient intake.
Yeah.
I think supplementation definitely has its place within that context.
How much does hormonal levels affect your job? Do you take that into consideration for like the 40-year-old that's coming in, or the 18-year-old? Like, these hormone levels, are they not really one of the rulers of weight gain, weight loss?
How often do you see hormonal imbalances that aren't affected by good quality nutrition and training? I'd say in itself, just training and eating better, and maybe sleeping better in some people's case, some stress management, goes a long way towards rectifying hormonal imbalances. I very, very rarely see any kind of hormonal imbalance that negates the effect of a caloric deficit and energy expenditure. They are out there, 100%. It does exist, and I have seen it, but more often than not, those people are unicorns. It's, I would never, if someone's not losing weight, the first thing, or no, someone's not improving their body composition, the first thing the first thing that doesn't jump to mind is, oh, it must be their hormones, which is probably a mistake a lot of people make, because there's definitely a fashion in personal training to be very like hormone focused. It's generally that, okay, they're not sticking to the caloric deficit. If there's someone who I'm 100% confident that they're telling the truth and they are maintaining the caloric deficit they've been set, and they are not getting leaner and you're not seeing any effects from it, then that's a conversation of, okay, maybe you should look at thyroid testing, maybe you should have your metabolic rate tested, things like that. But it's a very rare situation. And like I said, yes, people will come in with low hormones in the first place, but generally good food and training goes a long way towards rectifying that.
I think that's a really good point. And I think a lot of people are suffering from things they just don't need to be suffering from. If you gave yourself 12 weeks with a decent personal trainer to do your diet, do your exercise, pretty much a lifestyle change as well, isn't it, Luke? Possibly, you might find that a lot of these problems, just slowly melt away.
100%. Look, like lack of nutrition, lack of
sleep's a big one.
Like micronutrients, lack of sleep, excessive stress, and lack of movement goes a long way towards fucking people up.
Do you know, I was where's my book? There is so much evidence that suggests that let's go into injuries and pain, as well as being overweight and your feelings, how your feelings affect your body. Like, there is so many things that can affect us. So for instance, coming into a gym and being susceptible to, I don't know, different colors, different lights can make you change the way your body is, or you're actually using that in a training session or in a rehab session. Colors, sounds, the stress that you've had in the day or you haven't had in the day. So this is one of the things where the science of training and rehab kind of goes all wishy-washy, because you can never, ever, ever have the perfect scenario for testing people. We've got best practices, but it's just impossible. And most of the people that they do test anyway usually have no problems. But you can't have somebody with every single problem. I mean, I know, like, you may train somebody who's got Parkinson's, for instance, or so the outcomes are going to be, and that person may be affected by different things in their life at different levels and different times. So the parameters are so individual. I mean, we're all similar, all right? We're all similar. We know that if we exercise, for instance, we should do better unless we've got underlying health problems. But the parameters of getting somebody to that just on one exercise, like you said about regressions, you may have one person that's doing full-on deadlifts with, working up to double their body weight. Another person might be lifting a bag off the floor. It's so vast.
Yeah, but the relative. I think it just has to be that the relative progression for each person's similar. For some people, lifting that bag and it turning into a heavier bag or whatever. Someone lifting a 20-kilo deadlift.
Yeah.
If it's still progressed in the same way, if their set point was so far down that them deadlifting that 20-kilo bar is a sizable piece of progress, then it's just as significant as someone pulling 200.
What's the most you've ever deadlifted?
A rack pulled. I know this isn't. That's kind of like negates the conversation, but I got to a point where I didn't actually pull off the floor that much. A rack pulled 300 once.
What, 300 kilos?
Yeah.
That's good, Luke.
And that was mid shin, just above mid shin.
That's good. 300 kilos from mid shin.
Squatted 200 Astagrass.
Yeah.
I think probably off the floor, I don't know, 250, 260, something like that. But
that's really good.
I'd like that bit off the floor was my sticking point. Some people, their sticking points at the top.
Yeah.
They can't lock out. I never had any problem with lockout. It was just that first pull off the floor, actually the bar breaking off the floor. That was my sticking point. So just a little bit of elevation in a rack dramatically increased the amount I pulled. I'm not recommending that anyone ever do that, to be honest.
But there's a lot of science behind lifting really heavy from limited positions. What do they call it? Partials. Partials lifting, where you can go super, super heavy, but you're only moving inches. I watched Eddie Hall the other day. He held overhead, right? He did a 1-inch press, right? So he had his arm up above him, and there was a set of squat stands, and the bar
like a pin press.
Yeah, like a pin press.
Yeah.
So he's pushing straight up. So he's underneath it. It was on some show where they're copying the strongman of old, and I think they were copying Waldo. Was it? Is it Waldo? Anyway, the Great Waldo, something like that. Anyway, so that pin press. So he goes underneath. So he's literally just got to push that barbell up so it comes off the rack and down. All right. It doesn't have to be even or anything. It's just as long as he gets it moving. And he was on I'm sure it was 500 and like the best part of 550 kilos. Like, that's just insane. And he said his entire body, he said if he'd have gone for another lift, because there was another guy trying to beat him, Robert Oberst, I think it was. He said, if I would not have been able to have gone up, he said, because literally I could feel my elbows cracking, my wrists disintegrating, my back going. But the amount of sinew, joint, tendon, ligament strength that you need, apart from the sheer force and muscle force, to be able to move partials is like freaking incredible.
Well, look, you definitely have to be built a certain way in order to be able to do that. Not every human's going to be doing it. But look, in terms of powerlifting, partials 100% have their place. I think in terms of filling deficits within strength or filling deficits within movement patterns as well, I think it definitely has its place. Yeah, definitely. But a really simplified way of putting it for me would be if someone sucks within a certain portion of a lift, like make them spend more time there. Yeah, I agree. If the bottom position of someone's squat sucks, make them spend more time there. Whether it be partials, whether it be isometrics, whatever. But it's just spend more time in the bit that needs work. Yeah, so isometrics is a real good one. So in the strength curve, you get around 15 to 20 degrees either side of the position you're holding. You will also build strength. I think I might have lost you here, Graham. You're back, yeah? Yeah, I got it.
So 15 to 20 degrees either side of the position that you're holding isometrically, you will gain strength in that position. So if you're flat at the bottom there, you've got 15 to 20 degrees either side and all the way up the strength curve. So what we found with a lot of people, and I've trained a lot of people, they'll be good, like you said, in certain positions, and then we have to bring them. So like when someone's going through a squat, they will quite often just their movement they fall through certain parts, and they have to push hard at the bottom because they've got nothing in the middle, and then they're good at the top. And that's where we start to find, I don't know if you find this, that people start to break down in these sections and this is good tips for people actually. Train the section where you're weak, because that is your sticking point. That will be your weak point. Just as Luke just said, this is a little bit more advanced than somebody going to a gym on a 12-week body transformation. But if you're serious about lifting, you've got to look into isometrics, and you've got to look into this actual specific point in the strength curve to train. And a good one for that is pull-ups. Because a lot of people can't get chest to bar. They can't get that last retraction in their back through their scapula to get their chin over and be able to pull to this kind of sternum level. And you have to do a lot of training in the back there, and even holding that position to build up that strength. Well,
a lot of people, even an even more regressed version, like most people can't, before they even start with pull-ups, most people can't take their weight on their hands and just hang.
Oh yeah, I mean that's
like,
yeah.
Spend some time doing that as well.
Yeah, just feet on the floor, just literally hands around the bar, keep your feet on the floor, and then over time gradually take more weight off your feet until you're full straight arm hanging.
But no, they've definitely got their place. It's one of the things that I use consistently with people. I have very, very few clients that wouldn't benefit from isometrics, and it's out of all advanced techniques, drop sets, pre-exhaust, post-exhaust, cluster sets, things like that. The first one I'll generally bring in is isometrics.
Really? That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I love
well,
it.
Generally, once someone has done a 12-week program, where obviously the aim is to get someone as lean as possible.
Yeah.
Because that's the outcome that we're selling, which is, someone buys a 12-week transformation, and now I start about telling them about how I'm going to improve their squat and improve their lunge pattern and stuff like that. Yeah. They're probably going to be, well, look, I didn't pay for that. I want to be less fat. And I want to be muscular.
See that book?
Yeah.
So for anyone out there who doesn't know, if you want to do some serious stretching, that's an isometrically stretching system, which is, I think it was written in the 80s or 70s, 1985 originally. That is as good today and probably better than a lot of stuff that's out there that I've ever seen. And it can really help stretch you up. I mean, it is seriously good. One of the best books I ever bought, that was. But that's isometric stretching, not isometric lifting, so to speak. But they both go hand in hand.
Well, yeah, look, if you hold a bottom position, you're in an isometric stretch, right?
Have you seen, is it Juji Mafuji or something like that?
Juji Mufu?
Juji Mufu?
Yeah, something like that.
He's incredible.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like he'll do the splits.
He's a circus strongman, basically, isn't he?
Yeah, but he'll do the splits between two chairs and hold a couple of, like 50 kilos in his hand and do pressing and stuff. So he calls it flexible steel or something. It's a good book.
Yeah. And then set it on fire at the same time.
Possibly, yeah. Well, dude, look, we've been rabbiting on for an hour and a half here.
It's flown by.
It does when you're talking about stuff you like. And there's a lot of things I could have talked about, but maybe we'll do them for another time. I wanted to talk about your hip injury and stuff, but
we'll do another one.
We'll do it another time. We'll see how this one goes. See if people sort of log in. I mean, is anyone going to listen to us rabbiting on for an hour and a half? Who knows?
Well, look, I listened to a bunch of people rabbiting on for 3 hours, so you never know.
Yeah, and we
basically spoke about all the stuff that I've done right on this one. Next time we'll just talk about all the stuff I've done wrong.
I tell you, I think the stuff that we do wrong is more. It's weird, isn't it? Because we learn so much from what we do wrong. Like I've learned so much.
That's everything that I've learned is from
doing it.
Oh, this broke. Right. How do we stop that happening again?
Man, I'm going through this thing at the moment where I'm trying to do my RKC and I'm trying to get that Russian kettlebell system. Man, Luke, it's really, really tough. Because I'm 55, I've got nerve damage in my neck, I've got back problems, but not just that. I'd done a lot of kettlebell work in the past, and I'm trying to remember my coach at the moment, Terence Enluvu, sorry. He's like conditioning me. Oh my God. Honestly, it's so tough. The lung capacity.
You have to do the one where you have to hold front rack position for something like 3 minutes, and every 2 seconds you have to do a double jerk.
I haven't done that yet. The
jerk ends up being your rest, because it's actually just the weight of the 2 kettlebells bearing down on your chest for 3 minutes. Look, that destroys you. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Like I literally, right, when I first started, I did so there's a 5-minute test, right? So you have to do 100 swings, kettlebell swings, in 5 minutes, right? So I had a 24 kilo kettlebell, right? I did about 90 to 93, 94 two-handed swings in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't get to 100, right, when I first started. And now I'm doing 100 one-handed swings in about 4 minutes. So the level of conditioning is like unbelievable to get to that level. I mean, I've literally I'm training the hardest I've trained in 10 years, easily. I spent too long training other people. That's the trouble, and not worked on myself enough. Things go, but it's just that level of conditioning. I'm
always tempted to do like RKC or Strong First or something. I think the Strong First qualification similar. I think it's 100 snatches in 5 minutes with a 24.
Yeah, well, you do have to do that in the RKC. They're both
Pavel, isn't it? Strong First is when Pavel left RKC.
But Dan John heads up RKC, and Pavel, I think, is Strong First. They're both very, very similar. They're both RKC was the original. Strong First broke up. I don't know all the politics, but they're both like 2 very, very awesome systems. They really are. But if you're an RKC or a Strong First person, honestly, and especially if you're over the age of 40, I'm telling you, my hat is off to you, because that shit is tough. It is tough. I like every single UFC fighter should do that stuff.
Yeah. The only thing that's held me back is because I got 2 fingers ripped off on one hand.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Just the grip challenge of some of their standards.
Yeah.
Might be tricky.
Yeah.
But because the grip's very different on my left hand to the right. But that 300k rack pull I did with no straps. So when I first started deadlifting, because that's my strong finger, because that one's missing, that one got reattached, so it hasn't got very much strength. So that's the one where most of the load goes. I tore that muscle in my finger every single time I deadlifted for about the first year of training. And that was on like 60k. And it gets stronger, got stronger.
But this is something that people don't understand, right? So I get a lot of people who are training and they go, I can't do it, I'm hurting, I'm hurting. I can't do it, my back, I can't do it, my knee, I can't do it, blah, blah. Right? I've trained injured probably a big part of my training life. I have, ever since I was 10 years old. And it's something you learn to live with, or you don't do it. But only the person knows the difference between whether their injury is something that feels a little bit too bad, or it's something that they can train around or with. So right now, I would say I'm training with injury, because my back isn't 100%. My knees aren't 100%, but I still push it to the level that I can. And they ache sometimes and they hurt, but it doesn't stop me doing it. And then over time, what you start to find is over time, this is where we go all the way back full circle to when I said to you, do you find people with injuries and that they train and then they get better? That's what seems to happen. The injury starts to dissipate. You start to get stronger and you start to overcome the injury, depending on what it is. I'm not just saying everybody should go out who's got a blown disc. And
most people aren't used to being uncomfortable and don't like being uncomfortable. And so that part of training, I think this is where, say, the mental side can get a lot of benefit from training, is people start learning resilience.
Yeah.
And I need to read that, what's his name? Ross Edgley book called The Art of Resilience, where he basically just sets himself a bunch of hard shit to do.
Well, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Just for the sake of it. And even like little things. He's like, and even he said it starts with like the decision of, do you know what, it's cold outside and I'm just going to make the decision to go outside without that jacket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck it. And like, that's the first step in it. And a lot of people just don't have the resilience and don't like discomfort. And so part of it is getting, what's the term? Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's a big saying at the moment. Yeah.
And what's the other one? It's David Goggins, isn't it? Everyone quits at 40%. I
mean, he is a legend to me at the moment. I mean, I'm following a lot of his stuff, and I was watching him on a podcast the other day, and no, it wasn't him. It was somebody who trained with him. Right, no, it was two.
I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Right,
Neil,
what?
The baby's coming back. I can hear the front door opening.
All right,
so
dude.
We're going to have to do that another time.
I'm going to say goodbye to you, and I'm going to leave my last message on here. But, dude, thanks for coming on. Thanks for all your insight. And we want to go back and do some rehab stuff at some point.
Yeah, well, we've got plenty to talk to. We can do this as many times as you want.
Cheers, Luke. I'll let you know when this is all done and dusted, and I'll put some little clips up as well. Do you take care of yourself? Look after that baby and your other half. And best of luck, dude. I'll see you soon. All right?
Awesome,
take care.
Mate. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
See ya. You too, mate. Bye-bye. Bye. Well, that's it. Sorry that we haven't been able to do any live chat work because we had a real problem with the software right at the start trying to get this onto YouTube. So it was really, really awkward. What I wanted to say right at the end there, if I can remember, was I was talking about David Goggins, and not many people see his full workout regime, right? And I got hold of a video. It's on YouTube. You can go and see it. And he's taking a training session. I think it's in Australia, okay? And it's just a bodyweight training session, right? And I decided in my front room, put the telly on, I'm going to go through his bodyweight session. And I'm not trying to there's no way I could keep up with a guy like this. But remember, he doesn't really put on a lot of stuff that he does. You see him running along and like he'll shout at the camera about motivation stuff, yeah? And he doesn't really, you don't know what he does. That you see him doing some press-ups and a few things like that. So anyway, cut a long story short, I'm there in my tracksuit. And I thought I'll do David Goggins workout. So he comes in and he's all like, yeah, we're going to fucking do this, man. And fucking fuck, because he swears all the time. And that's his thing. And he starts off with star jumps, jumping jacks, right? So he's got a whole kind of like, there's a load of people in the gym in front of him and he's leading the session. And he does jumping jacks and each four is one. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3. Get the idea? Like he went to 350. By the time I got to 50, I was done. My legs, my ankles, my calves were killing me. And he did not lose focus. His positioning did not change once. His breath, he was totally in control for 350 reps. And if you think that 4, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, he's knocking out the best part of 1,000 reps. Try and do it. Just try and do that. That was the first 10, 15 minutes of his training session. And then he went into hundreds of press ups and lunges and squats, and it was just like crazy. And this was just a normal workout for this guy. And he was able to do this by reprogramming and retraining his mind to push him through anything. If you read his book, I would say get his book, David Goggins, right? And if you read his book, he just would run 100 miles. He had broken bones in his legs and he would just tape them up. I'm not saying you should do this, but the power of the mind over the body is incredible. And he literally created a different persona. He created a different persona that he goes into when he's doing these things so that he will never give up. And a lot of that was born through his adversity when he was in, I think, when he was in Navy SEALs training, and they would push him to his limit. And instead of breaking, he actually turned it back on them and said, give me more, give me more. In fact, I'm going to make you give me so much more. I'm going to turn it on to you and make you feel literally useless for pushing me, because I can do whatever you do. So it's all this fact of not getting broken. You can't. Whatever you do to me, I'm coming back, I'm coming back, I'm coming back, I'm coming back, I'm coming. And I'm never, ever going to stop, no matter what. And as Luke said a little while ago, it's this feeling of being uncomfortable, but being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now, a lot of you have heard that, and it is a really true saying. If you're not uncomfortable and you're living this comfortable life, then you're going to be hitting roadblock after roadblock, and you never go anywhere or do anything. You just, in fact, I think there's a lot of people like that nowadays. We're hitting hard times, guys, and hard times calls for hard thinking, hard emotional well-being. You need to harden up. You need to get this lockdown hard. I don't know, but anyway, if you watch this and you stick through to the end, thank you so much. I've got a lot of different fitness people coming on. There's a lot we can do to improve this. I haven't got the best setup, I do it as I can, but hopefully there's some information coming out about how people do stuff. I have a great amount of respect for Luke and what he does. He's an awesome guy. If you want to get in touch, either leave me a message on the YouTube channel, and we'll get it over to him. But go and train with him. Like, check out the stuff that he does. Go and sign up with him. He does it through another company, so you'll have to go through them as well, but it's well worth it. He's a top guy, one of the best in London. I kid you not. So yeah, that's it. My name's Neil Meekins. This was the Momentum Fitness podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you get a chance, I don't put like, share, subscribe everywhere, but it really does help if you just hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you found it useful. I hope you have, so that we can continue. The more likes and the more messages and things like that we get, the more people we can have on, the more information we can give out there. Sorry if you started the channel at first and we had the technical problems, but there you go. Take care and stay safe, look after each other in lockdown, but more than anything, get out and train. Change your life. Do something. Give up smoking. Knock down the drinking. Stop taking the bloody drugs. Stop it. It's not big. It's not clever. No one cares. It's too much of it, guys. It's too much of it. You're just wasting yourself away. Okay? Man up. Stand up for yourself. Make yourself the fittest, strongest, best version of yourself that you possibly can. You've only got one life. You've only got one chance to make the very, very best out of this. You don't know where you can actually go. You could take yourself into places you cannot imagine. You'll get your highs from beating those that say, no, you can't do that. Believe me, you will. You really will. And you don't have to be anything super successful. It's just you and your life and improving your life and learn and move on. Take care, guys. Look after each other. I'll see you on the next podcast, hopefully. Bye-bye.